Disaster movies, those often star sudden, effect-laden blockbusters about people dealing with or attempting to thwart catastrophic incidents, rose to prominence in 70s thanks to massive success Airport, The Poseidon Adventure, The Towering Inferno, possibly due to observation of being spoofed by airplane. The genre went into the decade-long dormancy like a volcano only to erupt in the mid-90s with smaller scale disaster epic and doomsday thriller about the tornadoes, asteroids, icebergs and yes, volcanoes that threatened us and have been an intermittent step of Hollywood release calendar ever since. The movies below a mix of 20 best disaster movies of all time. Number 20, The Wave 2016. The Wave is a throwback to the genre 70s heyday, leads to anti-Roland Emmerich proportions pitting a small Norwegian village against the effort-enabled tidal wave. Roar Othang, great action director name or the best action director name, takes the time to embolden his main character, a loving family of four in a small Norwegian village badly fraud-enabled tidal wave, and capture Norway's rolling beauty. Then the mythical star when the townfolk realize their fate, not only had 10 minutes to evacuate. The wave capsized 10 quality with 100 tons of liquid devastation. Not since Titanic has underwater photography looked so terrifying like its actor. We are in the tank of the wave. Number 19, World War Z 2013. World War Z is a big budget adaptation of Max Brooks' best-selling oral history of a fictional global outbreak. Supplies the generally generous specification of a zombie freakout with the scale, structure and the moral vision of a disaster movie. As a Brad Pitt zooms around the globe looking for the vaccine, the movie whirls around him, putting organizations like the United Nations and the World Health Organization at the corner of the urgent global response. Number 18, The Wandering Earth 2019. One of the highest grossing Chinese film ever made, The Wandering Earth is a major cinematic spectacle set in an apocalypse future where most of the humanity lives stably in the sci-fi bunkers underground. The premises introduce a future Earth that has been converted into the plate-sized spaceship by the installing enormous rocket engine into the hemisphere in order to drive the way from a dying sun that has become fatally cold, and the most of the entire film following driving in utility trucks. Number 17, Volcano 1997. Tommy Lee Jones in classic fugitive mode here is a Los Angeles emergency management specialist bark order with the pukist grin and generally choose scenarios a strongest force of nature than even the future lava spawning volcano. His very important job grants him the outside authority over disaster, and a boy he is the seismologist played by the Annie Hatchie have a dozy of a problem in their hands here. Still far more than rival 1997 volcano thriller, Dance Peak is a more important stop in any disaster movie sight scene to see just how much the genre has involved. Number 16, Twister 1996. Peering through multiplex like an Oklahoma cyclone, this natural disaster flick was an runway hit. Helen Hunt, a meteorologist, and Bill Paxton, a weather reporter, anchored to the over-the-top action as the strange ex-husband wife forced back together and back in the tornado and sends Coven flying into the stratosphere hits town. The production was plugged with the disaster of its own thanks to the unorthodox strategies from director Jane B. Bond, but the Oscar norms for truly breathtaking and groundbreaking visual effect and the sound design. Number 15, Titanic 1997. Grab a box of tissue, review favorite super dramatic course, and travel back in the time before the Leonardo DiCaprio was a bearded playboy dad boy in the supermodels. Over 2 decades after its release, James Cameron retelling of the RMS Titanic tragedy still earns the runtime and unspools as one of the greatest love stories among the disaster in the movie history. Number 14, This Is the End 2013. Disaster film can be funny because how silly can they often are, but rarely is an international enter in the This Is the End. The Seth Rogen and Ebert Goldberg half parody of celebrity and half repetition scenario as the most of Rogers Square. This is the end mostly just because bros being bros. This all began as hangout comedy where the Jerry Bruchel playing himself as everyone as in this movie. The brutal kills and planned-full cameos are the funniest part of the movie, but it is also has some thought on access and friendship. Number 13, San Andreas 2015. Nothing drive home the fact that human society is living in the brink at the all times more than the knowledge of the San Andreas fault line grinding in the gears underneath the state of California, ready to reshape our nation's entire coastline at any moment and dissipate the next big one. Don Jensen Rock plays a helicopter rescue firefighter who commands a number of vehicles to rescue the members of his family from cities reduced to the collapsing skyscraper and hills and the rubble. Number 12, Pompeii 2014. If you are itching for state romance and set during one of the greatest natural disasters ever hit mankind, you could do worse than Pompeii. A movie that charms with lengthy shots of Game of Thrones star Kit Harington abs before the setting an entire ancient Roman city ablaze. Harrington's play Milo Eka the Celt, a former beaten tribesman who was sold into the slavery after the Quaestus rebellion of the Britons, and now he makes his own ways a gladiator hunting down and general who murdered his family. Number 11, The Perfect Storm 2000. Based on Sebastian Junger's best-selling non-fiction title about a Massachusetts fishing boat lost at the sea in the midst of the massive storm in 1991. This George Clooney star vehicle and understand the terror and wonder of giant body of water. Director Wolfgang Petersen, who has also helmed 1981's German submarine classic Das Boot, know how to drench a bunch of shouting guests calculating movie star as they wildly emote in the fact of nature more unforgivable. 10. Moonfall 2022. In the tradition of many disaster blockbuster movies, the title of Roland Emmerich's cosmic masterpiece, Moonfall, gives you everything you need to know. Moonfall is a movie about the moon falling, specifically into the earth after being jolted out to its orbit by the malfunction coming from the apparently deep inside the moon itself. The only people who can save humanity are the internet megastructures, conspiring theories, a disgraced former astronaut, and the NASA hotspot deputy director who must brave catastrophic weather, tsunamis, a nuclear threat, and space program bureaucracy to board a rocket and find out where the moon is actually all weird. In the words, it's pure cinema. Number 9, Independence Day 1996. Today we celebrating our Independence Day. Below the Bill Pullman, President Thomas J. Whitmore is a cinematic speech. A motley group of fighter pilots assembled to take an enormous spacecraft bent on total destruction of the planet. It's a great ridiculous speech delivered by the Commander-in-Chief about the strap into the cockpit of the jack-off kick of the alien as the encapsulating the bombastic appeal to the director Roland Emmerich's science fiction disaster epic. Independence Day was received in the 90s a new strain of the mega blockbuster, one willing to blow up the White House, but there is an old-fashioned hotkeys and the storytelling that make it feel downgrade quaint 2 decades later. Number 8, Gravity 2013. The scale of the disaster in Alfonso Cuarón, Gravity is a simultaneously both intimate and vast. The fate of the world is not the stake. Instead, it's just a survival on one woman who faced the impotence of space. Upon release, there was a much ink spell over the supremely tense, nearly 20-minute long opening sequences present at if were in the unbroken take. People freak out over the filmmaking for good reason. It's tragic and receive or a fair nervous, but the rest of the movies is a testament to the power of Sandra Bullock's fearless performance. Number 7, Geostorm 2017. Who could have predicted that the near future, after humanity has tamed the Earth weather system with the network of the satellites orbiting far more above the surface, nefarious individual who had take control of those satellites and break havoc in the global population, setting off a chain reaction that of one thing. Yes, the word geostorm is said many times, which is the dreadful every time. Everything about the movie serves is a silliness with the album. Gerald Butler plays a satellite designer who is shot up into the space, essentially reboot a computer, while the president who has keys of the satellite gets kidnapped by the secret service agent, is self-describing text. Number 6, Deep Impact 1998. It is rare that disaster movie actually stop to consider the sadness inherent in that actual disaster, but mini leader Deep Impact does. It is the reason why the notorious Second Fiddle is the one of the most soulful entities in this genre. Deep Impact has been historically overshadowed by Michael Bay's more macro take on the astronomical object will destroy us all trope and sided by side. They are inductive is how a director's point of view can shape similar material. After a first act featuring the space mission stop the deadly comet led the Robert Downey leader mostly turn his attention to the soul back to the earth, grappling with the sacrifice that must be made in times of crisis. Number 5, The Day After Tomorrow 2004. The iceberg age phenomenon portrayed in the film is a result of melting ice caps and the chaotic arrays of globe superstorm in the real of possibility, but not the its actual depiction where the natural doomsday suddenly transform into the world into complete chaos, especially in Manhattan, where high school academic Decathlon Galen Hall is the forced to shelter at the New York Public Library, while also finding of Ravenous Zeus wolves as his wait for her daddy Quaid to rescue him. While the film space special effects were impressive for the mid-2000s. The over-the-top what if the scenario spawned a slow the imitators that envisioned similarly quick descents into the glaciers approach. Number 4. Dance Peak 1997. Dance Peak, which follows a sad wall played by the Pierce Brosnan fresh off the debut of James Bond of the Golden Eye as the becomes increasingly chicken lately about the Twitter mountaineer like hood to blow the top of the wipe out the tiny northwest town whose mayor is played by the Linda Hamilton. Concerned an actual volcano, this movie also bore the choice on 90s nostalgia, including Grant Haswell, coffee-obsessed geologist during the Starbucks post-Genu era of surge, but the add some commentary relevant to our current pandemic. Number 3. The Core 2003. Listen to the simple, all we have is a build of the spoof spill shaped like the giant tube in the drill down beneath the earth crust, swim through the hundreds of miles of molten magma and ignite a bunch of nuclear depth charge into the restart the rotation of planet's core. So Earth's magnetic field won't collapse and heat lightning storms want to barbecue our greatest landmarks. If that premises doesn't hook you, the cast of the movie will teaming astronaut Hercules Sawkins and the academic Aaron Eckhart with the astronaut Bruce Greenwood, hugely tectonic special Stanley Tucci and his disagreeant former planet Delroy Linda in impossible mission to save humanity. Number 2. Contagion 2011. During the first week of the COVID-19 pandemic, this 10 disaster thrill shot up to the top of the iTunes rental chart as curious. Worried views look at the movies for a way process the events unfolding headlines and the nightly news. Always a discreet and exciting styles, director Steven Soderbergh doesn't exactly deliver the straightforward Matt Damon starring disaster docudrama that you might expect given to the material. Instead of Contagion has a mischievous quality is the bounce different governments, medical and scientific teams hoping to stop spread to the deadly virus. There's a penalty of grim paranoia, yes, there is also dark humor and even a hint of hope. Number 1. Armageddon 1998. The more famous 1998 astronomical projection implies Earth blockbuster, Armageddon is the worth a watch. Regardless of your feelings about Michael Bay's movies, making Prue ways is just two science fiction spectacles with the scenes of meteoric destruction that channel Michael Mango's add the much needed visual flair to this overlay along with the manipulative sensual assault. These days, the Mako first pumping patriotism and the frequent religious platitude get plenty hard, but the purpose Astro Smith soundtrack hit you the don't want to miss a thing.